Elijah held Maya's hand tightly as they walked up the small stone path. Her eyes were wide with excitement. His smile was calm, but his heart was beating fast. They had waited for this day for months. The house was everything they dreamed of. A white fence, red door, clean porch, green grass, big windows that let the sun shine in. It looked like something from a movie, a place where families made memories. I can already see us living here, Maya whispered. Her voice was soft, full of hope. Elijah nodded. Our future begins here. They had worked hard, saved every penny, skipped vacations, ate simple meals, no shopping sprees, just one goal: buying their first home. Today was their appointment with the real estate agent, a woman named Sandra Mayfield. She had a big smile in her online photo. She promised in her email, "This house is a perfect match for young families. Let's make it yours." But when Sandra opened the door and saw them standing there, her smile disappeared. There was an awkward pause. Sandra looked at Elijah, then at Maya. She seemed surprised, or maybe uncomfortable. "Oh," she said. "You're Elijah and Maya." "Yes," Elijah said, keeping his voice polite. "We're here for the 10 a.m. tour." Sandra blinked twice, then glanced at her phone. "Right. Please come in." Maya noticed her tone had changed. The warmth was gone, but she ignored it. Maybe Sandra was just having a bad day. Inside, the house looked even better. Hardwood floors, a modern kitchen, a backyard with a small swing set. Maya walked through the rooms like a child in a candy store. Her hand touched the walls. She imagined family photos there, birthday balloons, laughter. "This room could be the nursery," she said, smiling, leaned against the door frame, and nodded. "It's perfect." But Sandra stayed quiet. Her eyes followed them, but she didn't say much. No excitement, no welcome, just silence. After the tour, Elijah turned to her. "We love it," he said. "What's the next step?" Sandra cleared her throat. She looked nervous now. "Well, actually, I just got a message from the owners." Elijah frowned. "What kind of message?" She avoided eye contact. "The house is no longer for sale. They've decided to pull it off the market." Maya's smile faded. "Wait, just now? In the last 30 minutes? Sandra nodded quickly. "Yes, very sudden. I'm sorry." There was silence in the room. Something felt wrong. Too fast. Too cold. To fake. Elijah glanced at Maya, whose eyes had dropped to the floor. He turned back to Sandra. "May I ask? Is it because of us?" Sandra's eyes widened. No, of course not. The owners just changed their minds." Elijah didn't argue, he didn't shout, he just nodded slowly. "All right. Thank you for your time." Outside, Maya's hands were shaking. As she opened the car door, she didn't cry right away. She just stared at the steering wheel, lips pressed tight. "Elijah, what just happened in there?" Elijah didn't answer, because deep down, he knew the truth. They were denied because of their skin. Later that day, Elijah checked the house listing online. It was still up, still active, still listed as available. He refreshed the page 3 times, same result. That was the moment the dream broke. Not because they couldn't afford it, not because they weren't ready, but because someone decided they didn't belong. That night, Maya sat on the couch with her knees pulled to her chest. "We did everything right," she said softly. "Why does this still happen?" Elijah sat beside her, silent. He couldn't explain it, and that hurt more than anything. The next morning, someone watched them from across the street. An old man in a brown coat, sitting on a wooden porch. He had lived in the neighborhood for 40 years. He had seen this happen before. Too many times, and something in his eyes said, this time, he wouldn't stay silent. The next morning, Elijah and Maya sat quietly at the kitchen table. The coffee had gone cold. The silence between them was thick and heavy, like fog. Maya finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "Elijah, what do we do now?" He looked at her. Her face was tired, eyes puffy from crying the night before, but underneath that pain, he saw something else, a quiet fire. "We try again," he said. "We keep looking." Maya nodded slowly, but inside, her heart didn't feel the same. They found another listing that afternoon, a small blue house on Maple Street, less modern, but cozy. The ad said it was perfect for young couples. They called the agent. A cheerful voice answered, excited to schedule a visit. "Come by tomorrow morning," the agent said. "You'll love it." Maya smiled for the first time that day. "Maybe this one will be different," she said hopefully. Elijah forced a smile too, but deep down, he had doubts. The next morning, they arrived early. The street was quiet. Children played on bikes. The house looked just like the pictures. Simple, sweet, welcoming. But the moment they stepped out of the car, a curtain moved in the house next door. A woman peeked out, frowning. She stared at them for a long second, then picked up her phone. Elijah noticed. Maya didn't. They knocked on the door. The agent, a young man named Kyle, opened with a friendly grin, but his smile faded just like Sandra's had. "Oh, hi," he said. "You must be Elijah and Maya." Elijah replied. Kyle looked down at his clipboard. "Yes, right, He cleared his throat. "I'm so sorry, but I just got word. The owners accepted an offer this morning. A cash buyer." Elijah's eyes narrowed. "Really? That fast?" Kyle nodded quickly. "Yeah, happened just an hour ago." He was clearly lying. Maya didn't say anything. She just looked at the house, and then back at Kyle. Okay, she said, softly. Thank you. They turned and walked away. Back in the car, Maya didn't cry this time. She didn't ask questions. She just stared out the window and said, "It wasn't the house that rejected us. It was the people behind the doors. 3 more houses, 3 more agents, 3 more sorry. It's no longer available." Every time they arrived with hope, every time they left with nothing. The pattern wasn't just clear, it was loud. They weren't being turned down because of timing. They were being shut out because of who they were. That night, Maya sat on the couch flipping through their folder of documents, bank statements, credit reports, pre-approval letters. "We have better credit than most of these sellers," she said in frustration. "We have money, we're polite, we follow every rule." She looked up at Elijah. "So what are we doing wrong?" Elijah sat beside her. His hand rested on hers. "We're not doing anything wrong," he said. "They are." Just then, there was a soft knock at the door. Elijah stood up. Confused, it was almost 10 p.m. when he opened the door. He saw a man, tall, thin, gray-haired, wearing a brown coat. The same man who had watched them the other day. He tipped his hat and smiled kindly. "Evening," he said. "My name's Mr. Jenkins. I live across the street." Elijah nodded. "Hi, I saw you too yesterday," Mr. Jenkins said. "Beautiful couple, seem real decent." "Thank you." Mr. Jenkins paused, then stepped closer. "I also saw what happened at that White House on Oak Drive." Elijah's body tensed. Maya stood behind him now, watching. "I used to be a real estate man," Jenkins said. "Long time ago. Retired now. But I know the game. I know what I saw." He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded paper. "I want you to read this," he said. "It might help explain what's really going on." Then he tipped his hat again and walked away into the night. Inside, Elijah opened the paper. It was an old news clipping from 20 years ago. The headline read, "Black couple claims home denial was racially motivated, investigation closed." Without charges, Elijah read the article aloud. It described a couple, much like them, same area, same experience, same silence, and at the bottom, listed under real estate agent involved, was the name, Sandra Mayfield. Maya gasped. "That's the same woman." Elijah looked up, his eyes dark with realization. "She's been doing this for decades." The next day, they walked past the White House again. The one Sandra claimed was off the market. And there it was. A new for sale sign in the yard. Same price. Same agent. But this time, a white couple was taking a tour. They laughed with Sandra. She was all smiles now, warm, friendly, welcoming. Maya's heart sank. Elijah stared for a long time. He didn't say a word, but his eyes said everything. They were never meant to have that house, because in this neighborhood, the walls had already decided who was allowed to walk through them. It had been 2 days since Elijah and Maya saw the truth with their own eyes. The white couple walking through the same house they were told was off the market. The same agent, Sandra Mayfield, who had shut the door on them with a smile. Too sharp to be real. Maya hadn't spoken much since then. She walked quietly around their small apartment, folding laundry, staring out the window, lost in thought. Her joy had turned into silence, her hope into doubt. Elijah tried to stay strong, but even he was breaking inside. No matter how hard they worked, how clean their record was, or how polite they spoke, their skin walked into the room first on, and it left before they even had a chance to explain who they were. That evening, Maya went downstairs to check the mailbox. She opened it and pulled out some bills, a coupon flyer, and something unusual, an old beige envelope with no name, no address, no stamp, just 3 words written in black ink on the front. "You deserve better." Maya froze. She looked around. No one was nearby. The street was quiet, only the sound of wind and a dog barking in the distance. She slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a folded piece of notebook paper, no signature, no introduction. Just one short message. "Come to Toned 17 Mulberry Lane. Ask for Clara. She remembers everything." Maya stood there in the hallway, heart racing. It felt strange, mysterious. Was it a joke, or trap, or something else? She walked back, upstairs, and handed the note to Elijah. He read it twice, then looked at her. "Do you want to go?" he asked. Maya nodded. "I don't know why, but I think we should." The next morning they drove across town. Mulberry Lane was an older neighborhood. Brick homes, big trees, quiet streets. Some houses looked new, others looked forgotten. Number 417 was one of the old ones, a faded greenhouse with a crooked mailbox and wild bushes in the front. Maya hesitated as they got out of the car. Elijah knocked gently on the door. For a few seconds, there was no answer. Then, the door opened with a long creak. An elderly woman stood there, thin, with silver hair tied in a bun. She wore a brown sweater and soft blue eyes that had clearly seen too much of the world. "You must be Elijah and Maya," she said. They looked at each other, surprised. "How did you?" The woman smiled kindly. "I'm Clara, and I've been waiting for someone to care enough to come." Inside, the house smelled like cinnamon and old paper. Books lined the walls. Faded photos set in dusty frames. There was a quiet peace in the air, but something heavy too, like forgotten memories, waiting to be spoken. Clara motioned for them to sit. I heard what happened to you, she said softly. Maya tilted her head. How? Clara looked out the window. Because it's the same thing that happened to me. She walked to a small cabinet and pulled out a wooden box. Inside were letters, photos, old newspaper clippings. She placed them carefully on the table. This house, she said, used to be part of a black neighborhood, full of families, music, children. We took care of each other. We shared food. We had pride. She picked up a photo of 10 smiling black families standing in front of this very house. But then, she continued, a group of people wanted to clean up the area. They didn't like the color of our skin. She handed Elijah a paper. It was a legal notice from the city on order for her father to sell the home at a reduced value. They said we didn't qualify to live here anymore, Clara said. They said our homes weren't up to code, but really, they just wanted us gone. Maya's voice shook. Why didn't anyone stop it? Clara looked down. Because most people looked away. Some felt it wasn't their fight. Others were afraid, and the rest just didn't care. She tapped the side of the wooden box. But I kept everything, every letter, every threat, every rejection. She looked at them with teary eyes. I didn't save this for me. I saved it for someone like you. Elijah opened a folded document. It was a complaint filed against a housing company signed by 3 families, including Clara's parents. Next to it, a copy of a sales list from years ago. One name appeared on multiple pages. Sandra Mayfield. She wasn't always an agent, Clara said. Back then, she was a secretary for the housing board. She helped write the lists of who got approved and who didn't. Maya felt chills run down her arms. Elijah whispered. She's been doing this her whole life. Clara nodded, and no one ever held her accountable. Then Clara leaned closer. But now, maybe someone finally will. She handed them the box. Take this, use it. Tell your story. Tell our story, because if people don't hear it now, they'll forget it ever happened. Elijah and Maya sat quietly for a moment, holding the weight of generations in their hands. As they walked back to the car, Maya turned and looked at the greenhouse one last time. Clara stood in the doorway, smiling softly. Elijah held the box in his hands, and for the first time in weeks, he felt something real, not anger, not pain. Purpose. That night, Elijah stayed up going through every page. Maya sat beside him, taking notes. Every letter, every signature, every date, told a story the world had ignored. Until now. Elijah sat at the kitchen table with papers spread in front of him like puzzle pieces. His fingers moved slowly over each page. Every old letter, every document, every photo felt like a whisper from the past, a voice long silenced. Maya stood nearby, her hands resting on the back of his chair. She didn't speak, she just watched her husband work. He looked different now, not just angry, not just hurt. He looked focused. This isn't just about us anymore, Elijah finally said. It never was. Maya nodded. It's about everyone who came before, and everyone who's coming next. They contacted a local community center. The next morning, a woman named Mrs. Benita Wells ran the center and had worked in the area for over 40 years. She had seen neighborhoods rise, fall, and rise again. She had also seen what people didn't talk about, what was quietly erased. Maya explained everything over the phone, the house, the rejections, the old woman named Clara, and the box of documents. There was silence on the line for a few seconds. Then Mrs. Wells said, "Meet me at 2 o'clock. I have someone you should talk to." The community center was small, tucked between a laundromat and an old grocery store. Inside the walls were filled with photos of local kids, community events, food drives, protests, pictures that told stories no newspaper ever printed. Mrs. Wells was waiting with another man, tall, quiet, and older, wearing a gray cap. "Is Mr. Reed," she said. "He's lived here longer than anyone. He knew Clara's family. He remembers everything." Elijah handed him one of the papers, a document from the housing board that listed neighborhoods by race. Red lines, black ink. Mr. Reed's eyes narrowed. "They said we were unsafe for investment," he said. "That's how they talked about us. Like we were a risk, not people." He shook his head slowly. "I remember the day Clara's family was forced out. I remember the night someone threw paint on their windows. And I remember how no police ever came." Maya asked gently, "Did anyone ever try to stop it?" Mr. Reed looked down. "Some tried, but the voices were few. Most people were just tired. We were too busy surviving." He pointed to a small photograph on the wall, a group of young black men holding picket signs in the 1970s. "That one there," he said, "was our protest. We marched against Sandra's office. She was a clerk then, but everyone knew she pulled the strings. She was smart. She never signed anything herself, but she made sure the names went where she wanted them." Maya took a deep breath. "And no one ever punished her." Mr. Reed gave a tired smile. "Punishment only comes when people care. And for a long time, no one cared." That night, Elijah and Maya sat in their apartment, thinking. Elijah placed the box on the coffee table again and stared at it for a long time. "We have enough here," he said. "Enough to go public." Maya looked unsure. "Are we ready?" He nodded. "If we don't speak, who will?" They reached out to a young local journalist named Jordan Banks. He was known for community reporting, real stories about real people, he responded within the hour. I read your message, he said. If everything you're saying is true, we're looking at decades of housing discrimination that no one ever exposed. Maya answered. It's true. We have proof. They agreed to meet at a cafe the next morning. Jordan arrived with a notebook and a small voice recorder. His eyes lit up when Elijah opened the box and placed everything on the table. He read the letters, he scanned the complaints, he stared at the photo of Sandra Mayfield standing next to a sign that read, "Keep our neighborhood safe." He looked up. This is powerful, he said, but it's also dangerous. Sandra isn't just a real estate agent, she has friends, city connections, political ties. Maya replied, "We're not afraid, we've been silent long enough." Jordan smiled. Then, let's tell your story. As Jordan began writing the article, Elijah and Maya returned home, exhausted but hopeful. They didn't notice the black car parked across the street. Inside, a woman sat quietly in the passenger seat, phone to her ear. "She's talking," she said to someone on the line. "They're bringing up the old files. The ones we thought were gone." A deep voice answered, "Handle it." That night, Maya woke suddenly to a strange noise outside their window. Elijah got up and pulled back the curtain. Nothing. Then, he opened the door. And saw it. Red spray paint scrawled across their apartment door. "Stop digging." Maya covered her mouth in shock, her eyes filled with tears. Elijah stepped out slowly, heart pounding. There were no footsteps, no voices, just the cold silence of fear. The next morning Jordan called. "They vandalized your door," he asked, shocked. "This makes it even bigger. If they're trying to scare you, they know something's coming." Elijah nodded. "Let them try, we're not backing down." Later that day, Clara called. "I heard what happened," she said. Elijah said softly, "They want us to quit." Clara answered, "That means you're getting close. Keep going." As the sun went down that evening, Maya lit a candle by the window. She whispered a quiet prayer, not just for her and Elijah, but for every family that had ever been told, "You don't belong here." Because now, the whispers of the past weren't quiet anymore. They were growing louder, and this time the world was going to hear them. It was a cold Sunday morning when the article finally came out. Locked Out: One Couple's Story of Housing Discrimination in Modern America, by Jordan Banks. The online post began with a photo. Elijah and Maya, standing hand in front of the greenhouse on Mulberry Lane. Below it, Jordan shared everything: the denied home tours, the fake excuses, the old letters, the files from Clara's wooden box, the names, the patterns, the truth, and in bold print, a name appeared again and again: Sandra Mayfield. Within hours, the article spread fast. Shared by thousands. Commented on by people from all walks of life. Some praised him. "Thank you for speaking up. This still happens today. I'm so glad someone exposed it." "You're not alone." But others pushed back. "There's no proof this was racial. Maybe they just weren't qualified. Stop blaming others." Elijah read every word. Maya did too. But instead of feeling scared, they felt stronger. Because the truth was finally out. And once truth begins to it doesn't stop. The phone started ringing constantly. First it was friends, then reporters, then activists. The local news station asked for an interview. A civil rights lawyer offered free legal support. A city council member even called and said, "If what you're saying is true, we're going to open an investigation." Elijah was shocked. Maya smiled quietly. This is what happens when someone listens. At the same time, Sandra Mayfield also read the article. She sat alone in her office, holding her phone tightly, her hands shaking. She had worked hard to stay hidden. For years, never left her name on official documents. Never sent racist messages. But still, they had traced it all back to her. Because the system she helped build had finally cracked. She called someone. "They're exposing me," she whispered. The voice on the other side was calm. "You made mistakes. Now fix them before this gets bigger." She slammed the phone down. For the first time in decades, she was afraid. That evening, Elijah and Maya went out for a walk. People on the street looked at them differently. Some smiled, nodded, others turned away. One man, standing outside a store, raised his fist and said, "Keep speaking." Maya squeezed Elijah's hand. They felt seen, heard, respected. But just as they reached the corner, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. A soft voice spoke. "You think you're brave, but you're just noise. Stop before it gets worse." Then the line went dead. Maya's hand shook. She turned to Elijah. "That wasn't just a prank. It was a threat." Elijah nodded slowly. "They're scared now." They called Jordan. He was quiet for a few seconds. Then he said, "This story's no longer just about the past. It's about right now." He met them at a cafe and showed them something new. Another woman had emailed him. Her name was Tracy Bell. She said her parents were also denied a home 15 years ago by Sandra Mayfield. She still had the rejection letter and a voicemail where Sandra said, "Your kind doesn't fit in this area." Jordan played the audio. It was real cold, clear. "You bring that into the story," he said, "and we're not just telling your truth. We're exposing a pattern." Elijah looked at Maya. This wasn't just their fight anymore. It was a movement now. 3 days later, a new headline appeared. Real estate agent linked to years of discrimination. City opens official review. The mayor released a statement. The housing board announced an emergency hearing. Sandra was placed on leave while under investigation, and a citywide hotline was launched, inviting others to report unfair housing practices. It felt like a storm had broken open the sky, and Elijah and Maya stood right in the middle of it. But the fight wasn't over. That night, someone left a letter on their windshield. No name, just 3 words. You'll regret this. Maya's hands trembled as she read it. Elijah took the letter and folded it without a word. They reported it to the police, but nothing came of it. No cameras, no witnesses, just shadows. The next morning, Maya received a private message on social media. It was from a woman named Alana. She wrote, "I was once Sandra's assistant. I saw what she did. I stayed quiet. But I want to talk now. If you'll listen." Maya showed Elijah. He replied immediately. They agreed to meet Alana at a public coffee shop. Safe, quiet. Alana arrived nervous, eyes darting. She sat down and whispered, "I only worked with her for 6 months. But I saw the lists." She described how Sandra used code words like, "too urban, not the right fit. Let's wait for the right family." Alana pulled out a folder. Inside were printed emails. Conversations between Sandra and others in her agency. Elijah read them slowly. One stood out. "We need to keep that neighborhood clean. No more special cases." Maya's voice broke. "They were never talking about the house. They were talking about us." Alana looked down. "I'm sorry I didn't speak sooner." Maya reached across the table and touched her hand gently. "You're speaking now? That's what matters." That night, Elijah placed all the new evidence on the table. The letters, the photos, the emails, the recordings. He looked at Maya. "We have a choice," he said. "We can stop here, or we can take this all the way." Maya didn't hesitate. "We finish what we started." Outside, the city was changing. People were asking questions. Others were finding courage. The truth had become a wildfire, and Elijah and Maya had lit the first match. Rain fell hard against the window that night. The soft rhythm of drops tapping the glass should have been peaceful, but inside Elijah and Maya's apartment, the air was tight with tension. Elijah sat at the kitchen table, files spread before him. Maya sat across from him, eyes fixed on the envelope in her hand. Inside was the letter they had found earlier that day, left on their car windshield. "You'll regret this." 3 words. No signature, no handwriting they recognized. But the message was clear. It wasn't just a warning, it was a threat. "They're scared," Maya whispered, finally breaking the silence. Elijah looked up, his jaw tight. "Good," he said. "That means they know we're close to the truth." Maya nodded, but her hands still shook. "I'm not afraid for me," she said. "I'm afraid for you, for us. What if they do something worse?" Elijah reached across the table, holding her hand. "If we stop now, we let them win." That same night, Jordan called. "The city's opening a formal hearing," he said, voice tense but excited. "You'll have a chance to testify. Clara too." And the woman Elanashi agreed to go on record. Elijah took a deep breath. "When's the hearing?" 3 days from now, at City Hall." Jordan paused. "But listen, be careful. There's noise building around this. Sandra's people are pushing back hard. Some say she's threatening lawsuits. Others are trying to silence witnesses." Maya narrowed her eyes. "She's desperate." "Yes," Jordan replied. "Desperate people are dangerous." The next morning, Elijah left to make copies of their documents. He returned to find their front door cracked open, the lock broken, lights still off. Maya wasn't home. She had gone to see Clara, but someone had been inside. He stepped in slowly, his phone shaking in his hand. The couch cushions were torn apart. The folders, gone. Only one paper remained, stuck to the refrigerator with a knife through it. It read, "Next time, we won't knock." The police came. They took photos, asked questions, promised to look into it. But Elijah could see it in their eyes. They weren't going to do much to them. It was just a break-in. But Elijah and Maya knew better. This was a message. That evening, Maya returned and broke down in tears when she saw the mess. "This is our home," she said, voice cracking. "Our only safe place." Elijah wrapped his arms around her. "They can take the papers," he whispered, "but they can't take the truth. We still have the scans, the emails, the interviews. They didn't stop anything." Maya looked up, wiping her face. "Then we show up. We go to the hearing. And we make sure everyone hears us." Clara called that night too. Her voice was calm but firm. "I've waited 50 years for someone to care. I'm not turning back now. I'll be at that hearing with you." In the following days, more people came forward. An older man named James, a woman named Tasha, even a young couple who had moved from out of state. All of them had stories. Different years, different houses, same agent, same rejections, same silence. Jordan added each one to the story. "Sandra wasn't just one bad apple," he said. "She was part of a broken system." But while the truth gathered strengths, the shadows also grew darker. Maya began noticing a black car parked outside their building. Different hours. Same car, same plate. Sometimes it was empty. Other times someone sat inside, face hidden. She told Elijah. He started documenting everything. License plates, times, Photos? But the fear still crept in. 2 nights before the hearing, Maya received a phone call. Blocked number again. But this time, the voice wasn't cold. It was smooth. Almost friendly. You've made your point, the man said. The city heard you. Everyone heard you. You won. But pushing it further. That's not smart. Accidents happen. Maya didn't reply. He continued. Your husband has a bright future. You want to protect that, right? Just stay home. Enjoy your life. Be smart. Then the line clicked off. Maya sat in silence for a long moment. Then she called Clara. They're trying to scare us again. Clara's answer was clear. Then it means your voice matters more than ever. The next day, Jordan sent them both a draft of the speech he helped Maya prepare. It was short, honest, powerful. It began like this. I followed every rule. I did everything right. But I was still told I didn't belong. Not because of my credit, not because of my job, but because of the color of my skin. The night before the hearing, Elijah couldn't sleep. He stood by the window, looking out into the dark street. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew what they were walking into. A system built to push people like them aside, and yet tomorrow, they would stand in front of it and say, no more. In the early morning, they dressed quietly. Elijah wore a suit Maya had bought for him during their first house tour. She wore a simple blue dress, the same one she had on the day. Sandra turned them away. Symbolic, strong, real. As they stepped out of their apartment, Clara was already waiting in the car. Her eyes sparkled with tears, but her voice was steady. Let's go make history, she said. And with that, the three of them drove toward City Hall. Toward justice, toward the truth, toward whatever came next. City Hall had never felt so full. People crowded the hallways. Some wore suits, others carried notepads or cameras. A few came quietly, just to watch history unfold. News vans were parked outside. Security stood by the doors. Something important was about to happen and everyone could feel it. Inside the main chamber, Maya sat next to Elijah, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Clara sat on her other side, calm and quiet, wearing a brown coat and the same determined look she'd worn 50 years ago when she first stood up for her family. This was the day the hearing to investigate years of discrimination in the city's housing system, and now people were listening. Across the room sat Sandra Mayfield. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. She wore a sharp gray suit and kept her expression calm. But Maya could see the tension in her jaw, the way her hands clutched the sides of her chair. This wasn't the confident woman who once laughed behind closed doors. This was a woman cornered. A panel of 4 city officials sat at the front. Microphones on, cameras recording. The lead investigator, a sharp-eyed woman named Counselor Ramirez, spoke first. We're here to hear testimony regarding alleged housing discrimination and to investigate claims of misconduct, abuse of authority, and violation of civil rights. She looked at Maya and Elijah. You'll have 10 minutes to speak. Maya nodded silently. Her heart beat so loud she could barely hear anything else. Just then, a city staffer approached Elijah and handed him a note. He unfolded it slowly. His eyes widened. It read, "Step outside. Just a moment. You'll want to hear this. No name, no signature, just an address inside the building, room 103. Maya leaned in. What is it? Elijah hesitated, then said, Stay here. I'll be right back. Room 103 was down a quiet hallway, far from the crowd. Elijah knocked once. The door opened slightly. Inside stood a man in a navy blue suit, mid-50s. Calm smile. He didn't give a name. He didn't offer a handshake, but he spoke with practiced charm. You've made a lot of noise, Mr. Brooks, the man said, and it's impressive. Truly. Elijah narrowed his eyes. Who are you? I'm someone who works for people that want this problem to go away. He motioned for Elijah to sit. Elijah didn't move. The man continued. We understand your pain, your frustration. We're willing to offer a solution that benefits everyone. He pulled out an envelope. Elijah, what if I told you that you and your wife could have a new home fully paid for, in any neighborhood you want? Elijah said nothing. We'll make sure no more doors close in your face. A clean record, cash support, even job opportunities, if you're interested. Then his voice changed, slightly, still smooth, but firmer. All we ask is that you step away from this case, decline to testify. Let the city resolve it quietly. Everyone wins. Elijah stared at the envelope, his jaw clenched. I see, he said coldly. The man smiled again. I'm offering peace, not a bribe. Think of it as a reward for moving forward. Elijah leaned in just slightly. Let me be clear, he said. We didn't start this fight for a reward. We started it because people like you and Sandra turned justice into a luxury. He stepped back toward the door. Tell your people we don't want their silence money. We want the truth. Then he left without looking back. Back in the hearing room, Maya had begun to worry. But just as her name was called, Elijah walked in. She saw his eyes full of fire. He sat beside her and whispered, They tried to buy us off. Her mouth fell open. What? I'll explain later, he said. But right now let's speak. Maya stood up and walked slowly to the podium. The room went silent. Even Sandra looked up eyes-wide. Maya's voice trembled at first, but as she spoke, it grew steady, clear, powerful. We came here today not because we're victims, but because we were told to stay silent, and we refused. She described the house tours, the rejections, the fake excuses. She spoke of Claire's history, of others like her. She read from the old letters, holding up papers from decades ago, showing how patterns never changed. This isn't about one woman, Maya said. It's about a system built to shut doors quietly without noise, without proof. Her voice cracked slightly. But now, we are the noise. And we brought the proof. The room was completely still. Elijah stood next and gave his own statement. He read out loud the words from the offer he had just received. A murmur spread through the audience. They're not trying to solve the problem, he said. They're trying to bury it. He finished with this. We don't want revenge. We want change. For the next couple that comes looking for a home, so they don't have to fight just to belong. Then Claire took the stand. She held up a photo of her family from 1965. They took our house back then, she said, but they never took our dignity. And thanks to Maya and Elijah, I now believe they never will. She looked at Sandra directly. You tried to erase us. But today we erased your silence. The panel called for a break, but the energy in the room had changed. People stood and clapped. Some wiped away tears. Even reporters looked shaken outside. A small group had gathered, holding signs. Fair housing now. Equality has no expiration. Date justice for Clara's generation back inside. Sandra was quiet. Her lawyer whispered in her ear. She shook her head slowly, lips trembling. For the first time in her life, she had no defense, because the truth was out, and the offer didn't work. That night, back in their apartment, Elijah and Maya sat together on the couch, tired, but calm. The storm wasn't over yet, but they had walked through fire and hadn't backed down. Maya leaned her head on his shoulder. We could have had a house today, she whispered. All we had to do was stay quiet. Elijah kissed her forehead, and we chose something bigger. 1 week had passed since the hearing. The city had gone quiet, but not in a sleepy way. It was the kind of quiet that comes right before change. Whispers in neighborhoods, murmurs in offices, news reports still running the story. Elijah and Maya had stayed away from cameras after their testimony. They didn't speak to the press. They didn't check the social media comments anymore. They had said what they needed to say, and now, they were waiting. Maya sat at the window that morning, looking out at the city. It was cloudy gray sky, slow wind, streets nearly empty. Elijah brought her coffee and sat beside her. What are you thinking about? He asked softly. She didn't look away from the glass. I'm thinking about what happens if they don't do anything, she whispered. Elijah nodded slowly. I'm thinking about that too. At 10:13 a.m., the email arrived. Subject line final. Decision. Housing equality hearing results. Maya opened it with shaking hands. She read the first few lines out loud. After reviewing testimony, evidence, and historical records, the panel finds that the housing practices of Sandra Mayfield violated city codes, ethical standards, and civil rights laws. Elijah leaned in, reading over her shoulder. The panel recommends permanent removal of Sandra Mayfield's real estate license, criminal review of her past contracts, and a city-funded investigation into discriminatory housing practices over the past 20 years. Maya's eyes filled with tears, but they weren't just from relief. They were from years of being told no. Now, someone was finally saying, yes, you were right. They called Clara first. Her voice cracked when she answered. I thought I'd never see a day like this, she said, wiping tears from her cheeks. They took everything from my parents, but now they'll finally be seen. Next, Jordan called. I just got the news, he said, his voice full of energy. Your story changed. City policy. You know that, right? You actually did it. Elijah smiled. No, we did it. Later that day, their story made national news. Couples fight uncovers decades of racist housing practices. City responds after powerful testimony from local resident Sandra Mayfield under federal investigation for civil rights violations. More calls came. Reporters. TV stations. Even a producer from a talk show wanted them to appear. But one message stood out. It was from a civil rights organization based in Washington, D.C. THEY wanted Maya to speak at a national housing summit before lawmakers. Before leaders. Before the country. Maya read the message aloud that night, sitting on the couch with Elijah. Her hands trembled slightly. They want me to speak about what we went through, she said, to tell the whole story, in front of thousands. Elijah looked at her gently. What do you want to do? She hesitated. I don't know, she admitted. I wanted justice. I didn't ask for attention. I didn't want to be a voice for everyone. I just wanted to live in peace. Elijah nodded, but maybe peace doesn't come quietly anymore. That night, Maya lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She thought of the first house, the door that was never really open. She thought of Clara's tears, of the old photos, yellowed by time. She thought of the spray paint on their door, the threats, the dark car outside. But she also thought of Alana. Of Mr. Reed, of the woman holding the sign outside City Hall that said, equality has no expiration date. And she realized something. She wasn't just part of a story, she was the continuation of one. The next morning she opened her laptop and replied to the email. Subject: yes, I'll speak. 1 month later, the stage lights were warm. The room was full. Petitions activists, reporters, young students with notebooks open. And at the podium stood Maya.com. Strong, beautiful, in a dark blue suit and her natural hair tied back. Her voice steady, her heart open. My name is Maya Brooks, she said, and I want to tell you about a door. A door I walked up to one day, hand in hand with my husband, full of hope. But that door never opened, not because of our credit, not because of our income, but because of something we never chose: our skin. She paused. That door represented more than a house. It represented belonging. It represented opportunity. And when it stayed shut, it told us, you are not welcome here. The room was silent. No typing, no coughing, just listening. She continued. But we chose not to walk away. We chose to speak. We found others. We uncovered years of silent injustice. And now, today, this city, this country, you have a chance to make sure that door opens for everyone. She closed her speech with a final line. Fairness isn't kindness. It's basic decency. And silence isn't peace. It's just the sound of injustice not being challenged. The room rose to its feet. Applause thundered. Tears fell. And Maya stood still, knowing the voice she once doubted had become a voice the world needed. After the speech, Maya walked off the stage and straight into Elijah's arms. He whispered, "You were incredible." She smiled, "So were you." We both walked through that storm. Clara watched from a TV back home, holding a framed photo of her parents. She kissed the top of it gently. They didn't live to see this, she whispered, but because of Maya, they're finally heard. In the months that followed, new laws were proposed in their city. An independent housing review board was formed, and young couples who once feared rejection started walking into real estate offices with new confidence, not because the world was perfect, but because someone had stood up and said, we deserve better. And Maya and Elijah, they did find a new home, not because someone handed it to them, but because they claimed it with truth, with courage, and with the power of never giving up.